Bismillah. All right, so we have the floodgates open and we have our members hopping in now, alhamdulillah. Let us go ahead and spotlight our guest here, inshallah. All right. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah. Allahumma salli wa sallim wa barik ala Rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa man wala. Welcome, welcome, PYG community. Let's see if I remember how to do this. All right. Bismillah. So we got the P, we got the Y, and we got the G over there. Welcome, PYG community. Alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah. You know, when they first came up with that sign, what was interesting about it is most signs like that, they face outward. So like, you know, whether it's a W or whatever it is, the person that's across from you recognizes it. But for this sign, it's actually facing you when you do it. So it's kind of something very personal, very intimate, being part of the PYG community. Alhamdulillah, welcome everybody. Yep, we're going to be recording this, Muhammad. We have Sister Megan with us, and you know, I can't tell you guys enough how fortunate we are to have her with us, because it is an extremely busy time for her in her life. Sister Megan is serving the PYG community big time nowadays, alhamdulillah, as a coach now, which is a great blessing when you joined the team as a coach, and being here for this office hour. Let's all make just a quick dua for Sister Sue, whom some of you have, maybe very, very few of you have ever seen her name. But she was supporting the PYG community, and alhamdulillah, she passed away last year. She's the mother of Sister Megan, and so we're so grateful to have had her part of the community and Sister Megan here with us today, amidst a lot that's going on in her life. So thank you so much for being here with us, Sister Megan, for a big discussion.
My pleasure.
Discussion on the Our discussion today is on the M word, marriage. Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah. So those of you that are here, also welcome. Many of you filled out the form that was sent out ahead of time, which is important because this is a big topic, so it's helpful to know who's here with us. Some of you might not have done so. So I'm going to go ahead and paste the link to that one more time. If you haven't completed the form, please do so. The link is in the chat box. Actually, I think I sent it the wrong place, so let me fix that. Everyone in meeting. There we go. All right. Alhamdulillah. Cool. Yeah, thanks for posting that question, Muhammad. You guys are welcome to post questions. There were some that came in ahead of time. I think there's going to be a lot of overlap as to the things that you guys are wondering, inshallah, for this discussion. So, inshallah, one way or another, your question will be answered. And if you find towards the end that it hasn't, feel free to post it again. Inshallah, we'll be doing our absolute best. Bismillah. Let's take a look at who we have with us here today. I'm actually going to do a quick screen share. And let's look at the demographics. All right. Now these are still going to be updated, I think, as you guys put these in. All righty. All right, should be able to see my screen at this point. Still some responses coming in, but who do we have with us? Half of us are single and considering marriage. So that will be the biggest group that we have with us. We have some individuals who are engaged and partner doesn't know about recovery. And I noticed the questions that tended to come in that were kind of longer and seemed to have some kind of intonation of being distressed about something, were those actually in this category. Those who are engaged and trying to understand how to move forward in the midst of their recovery. We have some married folks here. Awesome. Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah. As far as the topics that members have indicated they're most interested in learning about, the biggest ones by far are knowing about when I'm ready for marriage and knowing if I should disclose to my partner or my potential partner. Although we're interested in learning about the other topics here, those two stood out as the ones that seem to be most important, most relevant for us right now. But I think in the course of our discussion, many of these things will be touched upon, if not all of them, inshallah. Inshallah. Is this what you would have expected in terms of demographics, Sister Megan?
I'm glad that you shared them with me, actually, because for some reason I came in assuming that more of the individuals showing up would have been married today. So it's good to know that we have a mixture and a really strong single audience, who are really looking for answers right now. So I appreciate you sharing that.
Alhamdulillah. Absolutely, absolutely. So I'll head back. I'll stop the screen share, and there's one question that I think captures so much of what there is to discuss today. I'm going to share that question, and if I find that member with us, we'll see if he might be willing to actually put it in his own words. But I'm going to pull it up, inshallah. And okay. So okay. Let me see if he's here. There he is. Muhadib, I got your question ahead of time. I read it, and I thought that it would cover a lot of the things that we wonder about when it comes to addiction, recovery, and marriage. So Muhadib, I am going to ask you if you would be willing to, in your own words, I have your question, and if I absolutely have to, I'll just read it off. But if you would be willing to just give us a quick recap on what it is that you're concerned about and what your situation is, and that will give us a great stage, kind of setting the stage for this discussion. Muhadib, would you be willing to do that for us today? Okay, got it. So it sounds like, Muhadib, can't use your mic. I'm probably just going to be reading off your questions. Does that sound okay? Okay. All right. So here's what we heard. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Take a look. Assalamu alaikum. I'll try my best to keep this short, inshallah. I'm in a situation where I am, alhamdulillah, engaged. Congratulations. However, I don't speak with my fiance due to Islamic reasons. We have a few face-to-face meetings, and that was about it. Along with compatibility between us, the families got along extremely well, and things went forward. The nikah is set for December of 2021. We have been engaged over a year now, and that's when I started to take my recovery seriously and signed up with PYG. I've not disclosed this addiction to anyone. I plan to continually use PYG as my support with the help of Allah. I know for a fact any whiff of this addiction will send her running in the other direction, and I don't want to lose her. She was hesitant about the marriage process early as well. However, she has come around to the idea now and is looking forward to it. Upon joining PYG, I have seen progress in myself thanks to Allah. However, I know I have a very long road ahead of me in order to cure 8 years worth of addiction. I'll be honest, my question is, how can I deal with this situation without ever having to disclose this to her or ever come up? I wish one day this addiction will be a thing of the past. However, I'm not there yet. Should I push marriage until next year? I'm anxious about the situation. Please provide some advice and guidance. Jazakallah khairan. May Allah reward you immensely.
Well, that's a really big question. Certainly is like overarching for everything, right?
I think so.
Well, so Bismillah, to kind of dive into this, I think the first thing that I would want to say to the person who wrote that question, or everyone who's here, is one of the beautiful things about being in a space like this is recognizing that you're not alone. You're not the first person that's gone through this. You're not the last person, unfortunately, that's going to go through this. And I just kind of want to start from that place that, you're not alone in the situation that you are in, and you're not alone in your struggles. And that, it's very unfortunate that there are so many things available in our world that can pull us off the straight path, that can, tempt us away from things that are good for us. And like you mentioned, these things have been going on for a long time. And especially for a lot of individuals, these things start when you're practically kids, right? When you're a young child, maybe you're early teenager. And, I have 4 kids, alhamdulillah, masha'Allah, and, just seeing all the different stages of development. And now my eldest being 18 years old, and my eldest daughter is now 18. My son is now, about to be 17 in a week, inshallah. Then we've got little ones, 9 and 6. I look at their ages and I go back in time and I think about like who I was at these different ages. Where was I at 17? Where was I at 18? And I think of them going out into the world, or them having to deal with things, and just really appreciating from my perspective now as a parent, having raised, these kids into their young adulthood, they have so much inexperience, right? There's so many things I still want them to learn. There's so many things that they need to understand. And it's not just about marriage, right? It's about understanding emotional regulation, dealing with challenges, dealing with stress, your Muslim identity, the struggles of Iman. And so just kind of starting from this place of understanding that when you're looking at the situations that you're in, and undoubtedly terrified of someone finding out, scared of what someone's going to think or say, worried about who would judge you or shame you, I feel like it's very helpful to go back to the beginning and ask yourself, how did you fall into this path? And I'm not saying that in order for, for any of us in our lives, for any shortcomings that we have, to then justify it, right? Like, well, it's not my fault. I was only 12 or I was 13 or things like that, right? What it does do for a sincere heart is it empowers us to go back in time and understand that there were certain things coming together, in our lives, and we didn't know how to handle them. And slowly those things, they start to build up momentum, and then eventually there's a snowball effect. And maybe the next thing you're in a place you never imagined you could have been in your life. You're doing things that you thought you would never do. I think just first going back and owning the beginning of your story is very, very important. And the reason why this came to my heart as I was listening to the question is because, generally speaking, we can't become better people if we're working out of just deep shame, beating ourselves up, thinking we're awful, horrible human beings, from this place. Coming from a place of shame, we will not lift ourselves up. When you're in shame, you don't seek resources, you don't, commit yourself fully to something that can support you. You don't reach out. Shame tends to make us bury ourselves deeper and deeper and deeper, right? And I think, I'm guessing many of you can understand what I'm saying, that you've probably been in those deep, dark holes where shame is very heavy. And maybe for some of you, you're in that place right now. But what's going to help, first things first, is being able to go back to the beginning of your story. Where did this start? And what were the circumstances around that? What was going on in your life? How old were you? And now, because, I don't know how old some of you guys are, but at least I'm pretty sure you're not 12 and 13 and 14 and 15-year-olds anymore, right? You guys are adults. You now, with an adult mind, with a little more maturity, are able to kind of look back at yourself, right? Be like, well, I was this age and I was curious, and the next thing I know, this happened. And I was also dealing with pressure from my parents or school, or I didn't fit in, or, there's a lot that's going on in your life. So before we even get to the question of the fiance or the spouse, or how do we, how do I address this? How do I talk to someone? How do I move forward? I just want to give you a moment of pause to appreciate where your story started. and being able to, for a moment, show up for yourself. Because this is really, really important in anything in life where we want to move forward. When we feel like we've fallen off the straight path, we've made a mistake, we made a poor choice, we sinned in any capacity. I have found, you know, I've been coaching people, alhamdulillah, since 2008 from all over the world. So coaching is primarily my connection with other people and their challenges of life and things that I'm able to help them and understand it. And I know that for everyone, excuse me, my voice is a little off this morning. I know that for everyone, being able to first give your own self a pause, right? Being able to answer your own story for a minute, being able to soften up for yourself, being able to show up for yourself and be like, you had all these things going against you. That's a really important first step. Because let's say at some point in time, your spouse finds out, your fiance finds out, or you're engaged now, you get married, and these things are still popping up. One of the things that I see can happen, which initially seems like a good thing, but it tends to backfire, is that when somebody finds out, especially a fiance, your new spouse, someone you've been married to for a while, is of course because you don't want to lose the person, like you mentioned in the question, right? You don't want to lose them. You don't want to lose their opinion of you. You don't want your life to be turned upside down, right? This is a big, heavy thing that you're dealing with, is that people kind of go into like a knee-jerk reaction mode of like overzealous proof that like I can change and I'm good and like tell me everything that you think, and like basically that other person kind of just dumps all of their emotion on you as an individual. And we'll get to that in a minute about why that's also an important part of a healing journey, especially if you are married, because I think that's one of the questions I think that I saw came in. But coming from this place first, those things might happen, right? Those things might happen. People have a right to be upset or disappointed. They have a right to any feeling that they have. And that's something that I always tell individuals. Whatever you feel, you have a right to your feelings, okay? People have a right to feel and react however they want. But if you have not already tended to your own self, where you're able to say, I understand this is something I don't want in my life. And I also understand why and when it started. And I am actively working on this. With that level of like, backbone's not the right word. What's the word that I'm looking for? Not confidence either. It's a solid, it's a grounded place, right? A grounded person is able to say, I'm struggling, maybe I messed up again, but also still hold some compassion for yourself that you are actively trying to change something that started so long ago. You have to be in your own corner first before you expect anyone else to join you in that corner. And I think this is something that many people don't consider. Because of course you come with shame, embarrassment, guilt, you know, all of these negative emotions, and they're not necessarily bad. They right? These kind of feelings push us, right? They push us to change. They push us to reach out for help. They push us to say, man, I'm drowning over here. I need some help. They're not necessarily bad emotions initially, but at some point to be able to hold your ground and understand, this is where I started. This is where I'm at. And now I can talk about where I want to go. I feel like that's a really first important piece. So I hope that this is making sense, because that desperate desire to be approved of, that desperate desire to make someone, like to convince someone like not to abandon you, not to leave you, please like give me another chance, like that kind of energy, unfortunately it backfires. Because as much as it seems sincere in the moment, eventually what I've seen happen for many individuals is that they start to feel resentful of the very situation they're in and the very person that they begged to give them a second chance, to please don't leave me, to please just like, I'm working on it, right? That desperation, that plea, that energy only lasts for so long. And then that same person becomes a reminder of where you are messing up. They are now the reminder of where you're not good enough. They are now the reminder of every failure that you've had or you continue to have. And so that person that you love, that now they were put up on that platform, now they are a mirror and you really don't want to look in that mirror. And so what can happen is you begin to resent the mirror. And so initially when you're begging and pleading and wanting that person to kind of give you that other chance, not leave you, not cancel the marriage, not to get divorced, whatever it is, unfortunately, I see people turn, and now they're getting angry, and now they're getting defensive, and now they're getting closed off, and now they're shutting down, and now they're definitely keeping secrets more. Now they're definitely holding off more. And in that state, a lot of people also stop focusing on their recovery, right? So if you kind of look at these two pendulums, what I find in the beginning is if you really can own where you're at with compassion, with understanding, how did this mess start? Especially for you guys, this has started way back when you were young. You've got to start with some compassion for yourself, so that instead of begging and pleading, right, instead of, bargaining with someone about how they feel or what you want them to think of you, you're able to say, this has been my journey. I'm struggling with it now. This is what I'm doing, steps A, B, C, D, in order to come out of this, and let go. And give someone else the human decision. Can they be on this journey with you? Because not everyone is right for your journey. And that, I know, is not what the person who's engaged wants to hear, but I want to put this out first, okay? And I'm putting these out first because when you think about it, these are deep life lessons, right? We all know about the Prophet ﷺ talking to us about be mindful of the people we surround ourselves with, for example, right? We know that the people around us impact us, but we also impact other people. And there's a chemistry between us and other individuals. And it's really important that in your life journey, you give people permission to want you, or decide this journey is one that they can't handle. Because then you're not in a place of begging and pleading and crying at someone's feet not to leave you. You're not in a place of feeling pressured to hide and cover up a very real challenge that you're dealing with. Instead, you're in a place where you recognize that you need to change and grow. You are confidently working on that. And you are not in a place where you have to pretend and hide anymore. So that may have been a way deeper dive than anybody was expecting or wanted in the first question, but I think that's where my mind went. And I think it's because I've worked with a number of individuals the past 6 months who are in these circumstances, but I'm working with the spouse on the other side, right? The spouse on the other side, whether that is somebody whose spouse is, using pornography or other, outside things, or other things, for women, it's just husbands that have lied about finances and they find out that they're broke actually and $10,000 in debt and they're losing their house next month, and whatever it is that's going on, the ability to own where you are is very, very important, because it's going to change how you connect and talk to other people. So I'm a big fan of go back to the beginning of your story, understand it. And if some of you have never done that, if you've never actually gone back to the beginning, and I'm sure that part of the PYG training has you do that, right? That first time and understand it, but that's really, really important, because I want you to approach your life, the rest of your life, from a place of, this is how I fell off the path. I'm struggling, but this is what I'm doing to get back on. And that is an empowered place to be in. And I think that people sometimes feel like they don't deserve to be in an empowered place. They don't deserve to speak with that kind of tone because, well, you're so bad, you're so awful. There are really bad things that we are capable of doing as humans. There are poor choices that we can make as human beings, right? We undoubtedly will sin, but we also have this beautiful capacity to take responsibility for who we are and own our story and own our circumstances. And you know what? If a person is right for you in your life, what they will respect in you in the long run is not in any area of life, begging, pleading, covering up, hiding. It's going to be the person who says, you're right, this is not good. You're right, I made a really bad choice. You're right, this is awful. You are right. And I'm going to work on it. That person is somebody that others will be patient with, who will support in the long journey. And the evidence for that is in any area where you have seen spouses hit a critical point in their life, right? the person who takes responsibility, no matter how many times they have to do it, that didn't have to lie or cover up or, you know, all those things, as long as they are committed with clear actions, clear accountability, right? A clear program, a path, a process, something, right? Those people find that they have support in the long run. So kind of working from that premise, for those of you who are engaged, for example, and you do have someone, or maybe you will meet someone and you're asking the question, do I need to tell them? This one's really, really tough because I don't know. So I feel like now we're going to get into like a case-by-case basis, okay? It really depends on where you're at in your journey, what's going on. So if I may speak a little bit more bluntly for a moment, this might be a little triggering, but I feel like it's important in this conversation. If someone is, you know, every week going to a massage parlor, all right, then that person's supposed to get married in a year. You're not ready for marriage at all. And you'd be outwardly, consistently with another human being in some capacity, doing something that violates the sanctity of your marriage, right? And so this is something that if you got married and this is a part of your life and a part of your habits, and they're still very much a part of who you are, that, in my personal opinion, would be oppressive to the person that you're marrying. It would be selfish to want someone who wants you based on an image of you that they have that is not fully accurate. This bites. I know this is not easy stuff. This is heavy. I understand that. But part of, you know, specifically for a moment, because I think we have a lot of gentlemen here speaking to the men, part of being a man is being known by your word. And so if you have someone who wants to marry you because everything seems great and wonderful and she has a very specific image of you, but that image really is nothing close to who you are in your day-to-day weekly reality, my personal opinion is it's selfish to proceed, knowing that you are definitely going to be hurting someone in a way that will take them years to recover from. If, let's scale it back a bit, you know, we're looking at online pornography and things like that, I still got questions, right? It's like, none of it's good, none of it's okay. But I'm looking at the gravity of this in your life, the intensity of the things that you're looking at, what you think about women, about sexuality, about this whole area of life. My greatest fear, again, is if you're actively consuming all of these things in the present, you're going to go into a relationship and you're going to hurt someone in ways that might take them years to recover. Because again, you're marrying someone who does not know or think that you are looking at people that you are not supposed to see or engaging behaviors around that you're not supposed to do. They don't know this piece. And so again, my question is, at what level of personal sacrifice are you willing to go through in order to protect someone else from being hurt? And some people think if I hide it well enough, I won't hurt my spouse. And the hardest part about that is that I have worked with so many women over the years whose spouses do have another life that they're hiding. The wife has zero evidence of that other life. It's the last thing she would ever imagine. However, she comes to me because he's emotionally never present. He's always on his phone. He often stays up really late and never wants to go to bed with her. She's sexually unfulfilled because he's usually tired, not interested, or fell asleep on the couch. And so eventually, 3 years in, 5 years in, 7 years in, she's broken and she wonders, what am I not doing right? She'll say all the things that she does as a wife, as a mother, she's wonderful, she's amazing, he's got this wonderful person, and she thinks that she's not enough. And so her self-esteem is eroded, her self-confidence is eroded. They fight about stuff all the time and they don't even know what they're fighting about. So the house is not happy anymore. The kids don't have a present dad or mom. Things are a mess. So even when the lifestyle is hidden, the impact of it is deeply felt by everyone in the family. The exception to that, again, is the person who is able to be transparent and say, you're right, I was not present today. You're right, I was struggling today. You're right. The person who owns truth, you know how they say like truth will set you free, right? Truth really does free people in relationships and family systems. You don't have to be a perfect person to make someone else feel really good when you just own your stuff. And this can be anything at any level, you know? You're right, I was incredibly irritable all afternoon because I was really tired, and I'm sorry for being irritable. That frees the other person from wondering, why do you treat me like this? Why am I not worth enough for your respect, right? We go through questions, and maybe some of you can relate to this from growing up in families. Maybe you had a parent who, you know, you thought there was something wrong with you as you grew up. And now you're an adult and you can look back and go, oh, I get it now. They struggled with this or they struggled with this. The person who takes responsibility for the hurt they've caused starts the healing process. But the person who avoids it keeps it perpetuating. Even if the spouse doesn't actually know what's going on, they're being hurt. So kind of like my message in all of this, these are really tough life questions, but how committed are you to your recovery? That's the first question. You know, if I told you that for the next 6 months, if you worked out 3 times a day and read these 25 books each week, that you would be a multimillionaire in 6 months. I know that you would find the time to work out 3 times a day or read 25 books a week or whatever it is that I ask you to do. And I'm like, you'll be a multimillionaire for life if for the next 6 months you focus intensely on these things. Like, I know everyone would be like, yes, let's do it. You know, you'll be up at 3 a.m. doing your first workout. You'll be doing it at lunchtime. You'll be doing it where you sleep, even if one eye is open, right? When we know something is valuable, we will do anything we can, right? To save it, to improve ourselves, to get better. We put in the time, we put in the effort when it's a must, right? It has to be a must. So if you've got someone who you think is fantastic, you think she will be amazing, you want her in your life, what are you willing to sacrifice and do in order for you to deserve that person to be by your side? And this makes us have to move, right? Out of places of selfishness and our own desire and our own nafs and what we think we deserve and what we want. What are you willing to do? You've got a year, right? What are you willing to do? What are you willing to give? How hard will you push yourself? And will it be nice? No. Will you enjoy this? No. Nobody likes growing. Nobody likes changing. It's not fun, period. Like, period, right? In anything. But you have the opportunity to ask yourself, what's it worth to you? What's it worth to you? What are you willing to do? And in that time, now we're looking at the help that you're taking, the resources you're adding. You know, are you using, first of all, start with PYG, are you using every feature that you can, right? All of the accountability buddy, the sobriety mastermind calls, going through the training, doing all the exercises, being in the forums. Maybe I don't know if you're leveling up and you're doing coaching, right? You're coming to these sessions, you're taking notes, and you're really actively engaged. Maybe after that, you add on other layers. Maybe you want to add a counselor on the side, right? Maybe you want to add on a gym membership or a personal fitness trainer to get energy out and do positive things. How's it going with your Quran? Like, you know, we're looking at all the different places in your life, and I'm like, okay, how committed are you? And that's just a question, again, for those who feel like they have something riding on this situation. Because I know that we all have the capacity to change and grow. I know that we do. It's not easy, definitely never easy, but we all have the capacity to do it, inshallah. But our commitment and what we're willing to do, the time that we're willing to put in, the investment we're willing to put in is going to have that long-term payoff. So that's kind of where I begin with the fiance question. Again, I know that there's no easy answer for these, and I know that these aren't like light questions, and I really appreciate that. And if you have something else you want to share in the chat or something like that, we can go back and forth with it. But these are the 2 things. Number 1 is, what are you really willing to do? And number 2, you know, where are you at in your journey? How are you tending to yourself? And then number 3, you know, respecting another person is knowing when it's right time, if you have to let them go or put things on pause and decide if you want to let them know why. So that's where I go with the first question. Allahu Alam.
MashaAllah. So glad we have you here, Sister Megan. MashaAllah. MashaAllah. Alhamdulillah.
So since we have brother, yeah, sorry, I was gonna say, since the brother that wrote the question is here, I would love to know if I answered your question, or if there's still a little piece that you're like, yeah, but if you have like the yeah, but part, please just let me know, because we're not having the opportunity to talk directly. So if you're like, yeah, but let me know what that is, and let's address that second piece and see if you don't feel like there's still a part of you that's not sure, please, you're welcome to ask that.
We'll let him think about that, inshallah. While the chat is potentially going, I'm going to be looking back at our questionnaire, inshallah.
Okay.
Yeah. Are you able to see the chat responses, Sister Megan?
I see them. I realize there's a lot that happened though, so I'd have to scroll back.
Yeah. Oh, no worries. Just the latest ones were after you concluded your thoughts. So we just Muhammad, Jazakallah khairan, that was amazing. And then Hubbard just typed it. Oh no, Hubbard has a question. Hi friend, just typed a question.
Okay.
So it looks like those are there. I'll let you take a look at those, and I'll be checking out the questionnaire as well, inshallah.
Mm-hmm. These are intense questions. Can we talk about how self-worth is or is not tied to behaviors? Okay, can I address the question about self-worth is not tied to behaviors? Can I address that one? Is that okay, Barak? I'll throw you off.
Please.
Okay.
Please.
Yeah, so I think it's understandable for all of us, we're all human, that when we do things that we're not proud of, it takes a hit on how we feel about ourselves. I think that's a natural response. However, this is why we need spaces like this, right? Because one of the things that I try to consistently teach is that our self-worth and our identity of who we are must and always be connected to our actual essence. And that is that we are souls created by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, put into human bodies on earth for a period of time. And so our value, our value is as people is that we have the opportunity to know who our creator is, and he chose to make me, he chose to make you, he chose to make every single one of you. He knows your name, he knows where you would be born, he knows the circumstances around you, he knows your struggles as well. Allah created you, and because of that, you intrinsically matter. And I have found that when people are at their hardest moments, it is this that I recommend is kind of the little thread that you hold on to that will connect you back to the rope of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that is my little metaphor, if you will, but that little thread that I don't want you to let go of is that you matter because Allah made you. And that in of itself is very, very powerful. And so you can say, I don't like my choices. I don't like the things that I'm doing. I feel out of control. I feel like I don't know how to help myself. I feel like I don't know what I'm doing, right? But Allah, you made me, and you made me with a purpose. Help me live that purpose. Help me know you, right? Constantly coming back to your relationship with Allah. And I know that that's really tough because when there's shame, one of the first places people turn away from is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because there's that tension, right? You're like, how am I going to stand in prayer? And then I know that I'm going to go back and do X, Y, and Z. There's a pain involved. And like we talked about earlier, pain's not a bad thing. Pain is a messenger, right? That pain is telling you that you're not living in line with your personal values. That pain that you feel, that tension, that shame, it is telling you, hey, you're not doing something that feels good. You're not doing something that's in line with who you really are. But I want to help you connect to the who you really are part, right? Who are you really? What should your self-worth be based on? And it's got to come back to this relationship with Allah, that He created you, you matter. So when you need to find your strength, when you need to find, you know, why you're in this world, it starts right there. Allah, you made me, and I'm here for a reason. And I'm on this journey, and I don't know how to get off this path that I'm on right now, and I don't know how I got on this path. I'm confused, but Allah, you made me, and you made me for a reason. Please help guide me beyond this. And just stay connected to that. And I think that that's a really important place to start. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not require us to be saints or angels, as we all know. That's not who we're supposed to be. At the same time, yes, there is accountability in our religion, right? We're not just, it's not a new age spirituality movement. We're like, whatever you do, yo, peace, you know, like that's not us, right? And there's a reason for that, because all of the things that Allah has said that are not good for us are things that inevitably hurt us. They either hurt us or they hurt other people, right? In some capacity, whether on an individual level, whether on a family level, then a communal level and a global level, right? So that the things where there are doors, it's not because Allah wanted to make life hard for us. It's because like these are the things that if you do them, they're inevitably going to lead to hurt for you and hurt for others. And so this door is blocked. Okay, so come back to that connection with you and Allah and understand that your actions, yes, they are choices you are making, but when you're fighting it, that's the most important part. The fact that you're fighting, the fact that you're here, the fact that you're trying, the fact that you've owned up, the fact that, you know, you're even in an environment like this at all, that says a lot about you. There is, you know, a whole group of people in the world who think that anything, like any connection with pornography or prostitution or anything, we all know things, it's fine, it's art, you know, it's human expression, it's creativity, right? There's a lot of people out there who will happily tell you that whatever you're doing is your business and it's completely fine, and hey, you should leave those draconian religious stuff behind, right? And just join the free movement, right? But we understand as individuals, maybe sometimes a little too late, the actual impact of things on our spirituality, on our emotional well-being, on our self-worth, how we feel, and on the people that we love. So just kind of circling through all of this, come back to your thread. Allah made you, you matter. You're struggling with something, but what makes you important, what makes you I guess the most valuable compared to others is that you are struggling, is that you are trying, is that you're not giving up. And I guarantee you that if this wasn't in your life, there will be something else you're struggling with. That if you guys, all this went away, there'll be another thing. There's always going to be another thing. There's always something that we're struggling with or we're going through, which challenges us, which is difficult, which is hard for us. And so there's a key in all of that, and that is come back to Allah. Don't run away from Him. Don't hide from Him. Come back to Him. Come back to Him and be honest. Tell Him when it's hard. Tell Him when you feel like giving up. Tell Him when you don't understand. Tell Him that you feel lost. Tell Him you feel out of control. Just tell Him. Tell Him over and over again, and know that He's listening and that you matter to Him. And that, I think, is the foundation for self-worth, inshallah. So that's kind of my perspective on it.
Barakallahu fikum. Barakallahu fikum. Jazakumullah khairan, Sister Megan. Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah that we get to explore these things. Somebody give us a realistic perspective, but also with tons of compassion and understanding for the human side of our experience. I did notice some things that seem to be perhaps relevant. Maybe I can bring those up, Sister Megan, at this time. So, okay. So first thing that has come up in the questionnaires is, so going back to what you shared, should I, do I disclose? The questions of what do I do can vary by one situation. But one question that has come up is there a time frame that I can have in my mind that tells me, there's two parts to it, a time frame that tells me I'm ready for marriage, and then a time frame that tells me that I'm allowed to enter a marriage without disclosing. Those are, I guess, maybe two separate things. That's kind of come up, and I think it might be valuable to hear your thoughts on that. And then there's one more thing, but I'll maybe leave that until after seeing if is there a charge? It'd be helpful for me in practical reasons, perhaps.
Right. So I think from my experience, I can only answer this question from experience with individuals and others, and just sort of seeing the long-term journey. My personal opinion is, if you feel like this is your past and it's no longer your present, okay? If you feel like I'm a different person now, and you find that you're no longer constantly managing that day-to-day fight, that day-to-day struggle, it's been a long time since you felt like you had that struggle, right? You feel like this is your past, then I feel like that's the past. And so everyone, I think, out there will have different numbers and times. I think a whole year is a really good one, because a year is a long time and a lot happens in a year, but I can't scientifically or any expert, data say that there is an actual number for this, because I think it's important. And I think a lot of you may be starting to learn this if you haven't yet, but you will forever be learning how to manage stress, emotions, insecurity, anxiety, nerves, pressure, right? This is something that does not go away in life. And so everyone has a coping mechanism, and everyone comes to marriage with a set of coping mechanisms that are probably ingrained for over 10 years or so, or maybe 5 years, depending on the age of when you're getting married, of how you deal with stress and disappointment and insecurity or anxiety or worry. That management system is something all of us will constantly have to be on top of, because we always have the propensity to slide into behaviors that aren't good for us, right? So whether that's pornography, whether that's work, whether that's food, whether that's drugs, whether that's gambling, whether that's just internet addiction and just mindlessly scrolling for hours on end, right? All of us as human beings will constantly have to be on top of our maintenance system. So just like we know as Muslims that our iman, the statement is it's either increasing or decreasing, right? We never arrive at a place where we're just like, I am awesome as a Muslim, right? Like, I'm done. We don't arrive at done, right? We're constantly working on our nafs, and we're constantly struggling, and life brings new challenges. And now we've got to figure out how to manage those and go through those tests and, keep the 5 prayers and still have the dua in there and like stay away from the haram. And, there's so much always going on, right? That is the nature of this dunya. So I think it's important that we first kind of understand that you never arrive at a place where you will not have to be consciously working on your character, your coping mechanisms for life. This is a lifelong journey. So with that, the reason I bring that up is to say, especially if you feel like in your past, you reach a place where you say, once upon a time, when I got stressed, when I felt lonely, when I felt insecure, when I felt anxious, I turned to certain behaviors along with pornography, right? And eventually that just became a habit. It just became the thing you did each morning, each night, on Friday, on Saturday, like whatever it is, right? Eventually it became kind of a numbing, mindless pattern in your life. But there was a point in time where you started to consciously turn to those things, right? For stress, for insecurity, whatever. Now you can say, I haven't done that. I haven't done that for over a year. It's been 2 years. But we still have to ask, how are you now responding to stress? How are you responding to feeling insecure? How are you responding to feeling anxious? How are you responding to feeling bored? How are you responding to feeling lonely? Because this part right here, this is where you have to know that at one point in time, those emotions took you on a deep dive to a place you don't want to return to. It's knowing that you have a sensitivity. It's a lot easier for you than maybe someone else. So for example, if we're talking about something like pornography and things with that, for someone else who has never engaged in looking at pornography or any behaviors along with that, if they see something on a screen, it's their immediate reaction is gross, or oh my gosh, or what was that, or they feel disturbed, and then it goes away because it's never been a part of their past. But for someone else, something like this, at the right moment, going through a difficult time with the right storm happening in your life, something like that happens, you have to be on guard for yourself and know maybe this is more triggering for you, right? So it is a past, but it's also being mindful that for a really long time, who knows, this could be something that you're always a little more sensitive to, and therefore you have to be much more guarded, much more on top of yourself, so that you recognize when those storms are starting to happen, that things like this happen, that you too could fall back into this place. And so what I mean by that is there is knowing that it's your past, but there's also accepting that any human being, myself included, all of us, could at any point in our lives fall down a slippery slope. And I wanted to share a little story about this one brother. Back when I was in college, I'd only been Muslim like 2.5 years, maybe 3 years, and I joined the college MSA. And we were having one of those Friday night MSA meetings that college campuses have. And I don't remember the topic at the time, but we were talking about, actually, I think there was like MSA politics, you know, who's going to be president. There was like 2 sides and it was a fight. That was going on, crazy stuff, nothing new for us Muslims, right? But inboard fighting and whatever. And it was getting to this level of like fear Allah and all of these things and who's bad and who's good. I remember it was a chaotic night, but I remember in the middle of this whole scenario, there was a brother, a Bangladeshi brother, who was like, masha'Allah, like 4.5 feet tall. He was really short and had this huge beard, always quiet. I don't think I ever spoke to him more than once. He was the quiet doer guy, you know, the one that's always, he's the dependable guy. He's always there. He's your right-hand man in every situation. He's always on time. He always shows up, but he's almost invisible. Like, mashallah, he works for the sake of Allah, but he's like never in the spotlight. And this particular night, he stood up in front of everyone and he said, I, Abdul Hadi, tomorrow could be on campus drinking alcohol and getting drunk and completely losing myself, if not for the protection of Allah. He said, Abdul Hadi could also become one of those people where I find myself completely lost and engaging in things like drinking and getting drunk and being with women. And at the time, again, the short little pious brother with the beard who always quietly works, I remember at the time thinking, oh, no, not this guy. You know, I remember thinking like, mashallah, like he seems as pure his heart as it comes. And may Allah bless him. To this day, this story, he's gotten so much barakah because I remember him a lot. But then later someone said something to me, they said, because again, I'm a new Muslim, I'm still learning. I'm thinking, why would this guy stand up and say something like that? That's crazy. He's never gonna go to the bar down the street like this guy. And a brother said to me, we were having a conversation. He said, no, but see, that's ikhlas. He said, that's sincerity. He said, to never think that you couldn't become like someone else. That's sincerity. He said, that's what it means to be like living life as a Muslim, is to always look at yourself and think, I tomorrow could be that person. And this is why I have to be mindful of myself. This is why I have to have fear for myself. This is why I have to always stay close to Allah, because I, at any point, could become that person. That stayed with me all of these years, subhanAllah. And the reason, again, circling back in this, I hope like you guys are starting to get the point of me mentioning this, is there's your past. Has it been 1 year? Has it been 2 years? Has it been 8 months? When do you decide that is your former self? But also understanding you will always have a responsibility to be very mindful and very careful about your emotional state and your spiritual state. And this is part of growing up. This is part of being an adult. It's part of being a slave of Allah. You never arrive at a place where you don't have to worry for your own soul. You never arrive at a place where you can start just loosening your boundaries because, I'm sure I'm fine, right? There are boundaries, we keep them in place. And so when you know that maybe you are sensitive to something, that you have a susceptibility to go towards something, then you add an extra boundary for yourself, right? You are now in charge for the rest of your life of your own boundaries, your own discipline. And this is how you tend to your soul So then you can guide your wife, your family, or for those who are women that'll watch this or who might be here, be an influence and guidance to your own husband and your children, right? It's having that self-accountability. So I personally, again, I'm a year fan, at least a year, but with ongoing maintenance, because a year is not enough to completely heal or overturn everything that led to having an addiction. It may be enough to completely change your coping mechanism, but gosh, there's so much more to learn about yourself. So don't stop that journey. Don't stop that commitment. Keep going, right? It's not just about, I think some of you guys have learned, the behaviors that you're struggling with are metaphors for bigger things, right? They're not, the behaviors are real, but they're also metaphors for bigger things. Don't ever stop the journey of personal growth. Don't ever stop the journey of trying to know yourself better, heal old wounds, deal with emotions, because life is very hard and there's going to be more challenges. And what's going to help you be strong is that you have that self-commitment to always improving yourself, not getting lazy, just like that brother said, because tomorrow, any of us could end up in a wrong place. So Allahu A'lam, that's my thought to that.
Barakallahu fikum. Alhamdulillah. So we have to figure out our plan here. All right, it's 5 minutes past the hour, the top of the hour here. So you're off the hook.
I'm still good. I got a little more time, but the kids are occupied, so we're good.
They are. Barakallah, bless them. Make them on the salihin. Here's my thought. There are two things I think that I noticed come up, and maybe I'll share both of them with you, and we can finish up with those two things.
Sure.
And then I don't doubt that there will still be thoughts that people have, but we will insist that we finish off with those two things, and then what I'll do is I'll post a thread in the forum, inshallah, and we won't have the replay probably for another day or two. Once it's available, it'll be posted in the same thread. And I'll just ask the question, what's your takeaway? How has this influenced the way that you look at your current situation? What questions do you still have? And we'll have a place for members then to kind of reflect and also share some thoughts with one another, inshallah. So that's what I'll do. Does that sound okay, Sister Megan?
Sounds great.
Okay. Alhamdulillah. So number one, is Hubbard leaving? Okay. See ya, Hubbard. I was going to bring up, I think, one of the things that you had posted, but khair inshallah, we'll have the replay. So the two things, number one is what I noticed is some members touching upon, one person put it, let me grab his words real quick, was I'm scared of, so I agree that honesty sets free. I'm just going to summarize. I'm scared to link with my wife. I want to be this man that is emotionally connected with my wife, but I'm scared for that. That's number one. It sounds like a fear while recognizing that this is something that he wants. That's number one. And then number two is, so I think that that might touch upon a little bit H on, perhaps might touch upon what you brought up. If not, let's continue the discussion in the forums. And then, number two, if marriage or fiance becomes the primary driving force to go all in recovery, is that sustainable? So how does it link into one's recovery plan and one's motivation in recovery?
Okay, so the first one was, I didn't quite fully understand, but what I kind of heard was somebody who's married, they want to tell their spouse and open up, but they're afraid. Was that kind of what you were saying? Or did I miss
yeah. Is he married? I don't know for sure, but he wants that type of marriage, it sounds like.
Okay.
Wait.
To be able to be honest, or
Exactly.
okay.
Yeah.
Well, we haven't directly addressed the married couple, the married individuals, and we've kind of danced on, I think we've touched upon it, but let's assume that they're married and they want to talk to their spouse. I think one of the other questions is, and what about if your spouse found out and things are just really tough right now because you've been found out and things like that. I think we can address both of those, inshallah. Oh, he's married. He mentioned his wife. Oh, yeah, he's married. He said his wife in the question. Okay, thank you for whoever shared that. All right, so speaking to married individuals right now, let me address two sides. There's the side that wants to tell their spouse, and then there's the side that their spouse found out accidentally, and cover is blown and everything is out in the open. So here's the thing. I personally look at relationships as an opportunity to experience emotional intimacy and safety in love. And so when I think a little background will be important. So in my Wives of Jannah organization, for example, and I work with wives and I also work with couples and we talk about marriage, I really look at the Quran as sort of my initial foundation. What is marriage supposed to be, first of all, in Islam? Because culturally, marriage has meant a lot of different things to people, and especially throughout generations and times. You know, once upon a time in America, people used to apply for a wife in an advertisement in a newspaper, and she'd arrive 6 months later somewhere in the Wild West. That was marriage for people back then, right? Some people are okay with arranged marriages. They never meet each other. Other people, you know, they don't. They want to talk. Things have changed. Sometimes we look at marriage from financial perspectives. Things have changed throughout history, right? What is marriage about? What's the point? What are expectations of a husband and wife, their roles? These things are always shifting. But Islam is supposed to be the center point, right? So when culture goes this way or this way, Islam is always the middle ground. And the Quran talks about marriage, you know, that famous ayah that we've created from you amongst your spouses, you know, from amongst you mates that you can have. And it uses those three words that I love. With each other, you can find rahmah, muadda, and sakina. Muadda is translated to love. People translate rahmah as mercy. Sakina is like tranquility. So first, if we just look at the foundation of marriage and we ask, what is the purpose of it? This is my personal foundation I build from. Which is interesting because when I talk about relationships, the programs that I have created, the way that I talk about intimacy, every single topic, sometimes it's just questions like, well, where do you get off having this opinion that, you know, sexual intimacy should be like this or communication has to be like that? I'm like, well, my center point is the Quran. We have love, we have mercy, we have tranquility. That's the goal. It's not the day-to-day reality all the time, but it's the goal, right? It's not always loving and tranquil, but it's the goal. That's the standard that we're aiming for. So first things first, what is the standard for your marriage? The standard, the bar has been set. The Quran said tranquility, love, mercy. If you don't feel loving today, you can at least be merciful, right? So there's sometimes you don't feel all in love with your spouse. It's one of those days, but there's mercy, and that's adab, and that's manners, and you lead with that part, right? And when you put those together, flowing between love and mercy, eventually you have those moments of tranquility. You have those moments of sakina. You have those moments of connection, of joy, of emotional support, of feeling like you're in a safe place. That to me is the bar that has been set by Islam for marriage. So now, if that's the bar and your spouse has found out or will find out that you have a life she does not know about, what do we do with that? I look at this as your goal is to consistently be moving towards that bar. How do you get there? Right? How can you restore love, tranquility, and mercy? One of the foundations for that is going to be respect and trust. Those are huge, right? A person cannot experience love towards you, not real love, if they don't trust you. A lot of women will say, but I love my husband, you know, but I love him so much. But if I really break it down for them, in those moments when they find out these things, that love, those loving feelings are suspended. And what we're really dealing with is fear and shock and grief over what they thought was their marriage, fear that their marriage won't survive, fear of having their life break down. There's a lot of fear, but those feelings of love are suspended. And when the feelings of love are suspended, there's some work to be done in this space. And so I ask the individual who's in this position to understand that as much as you are hurting and as much as you are also going through a very difficult time, being found out, having your wife angry with you, having them, you know, maybe they're screaming and yelling and throwing things across the room in shock and pain and hurt, you know, they're just breaking down, they're completely losing it. They're asking a million questions. They're just really, really struggling. is to really remember that you want to eventually restore that tranquility. And how will that be done? And that is now moving into a space of mercy. How can you show rahmah to your spouse? How can you be patient with them and allow them to work through their shock, through their disappointment, through their grief long enough so that you can get back to rebuilding the love in your relationship. You can get back to rebuilding the trust in your relationship and back to rebuilding respect. Because one of the things that I think is difficult, especially for men that I've experienced to accept, is that because their wife has lost respect for them, her treatment often follows suit. And it's not intentional. For a period of time, she often tries very, very hard to keep things status quo. She'll try very, very hard to, do extra because she often thinks it's her fault. It's because she didn't try hard enough. She's not sexual enough. Women really blame themselves a lot for a period of time. And they think that it's something that they're not doing that's causing their husband to go astray. And they're very hard on themselves. They lose almost all their confidence and self-esteem in this process because they keep thinking, by nature as women, we are nurturers. And one of our primary roles that, we fall into naturally is being the nurturers. We're the nurturers of our families. Women are often the ones that keep all the family relations connected. We raise the children. We're there at birth, right? Our nature is to nurture. And so one of the strengths as a woman is that we believe in the power of love. But one of the weaknesses as women is we believe in the power of love and that we believe that if we love someone enough that they will change. So even that kind of delusion is being broken, right? But I have loved you for so many years and I have sacrificed for you and I have supported you and I have believed in you and we built this marriage and I've been intimate with you and I've told you my secrets and those vulnerabilities, how could you do this? So when the respect for her kind of goes out the window, it's very hard for her to maintain for many women, the kind of emotional support or kindness or gentleness that you're used to relying on in your life. So in these periods, what I recommend is number one, make sure that you have outside support for yourself so that you continue on your journey to heal. But now you also need outside support to help you endure the consequences that have hit home. And I say that because, again, I tend to work with the women and I know how hard it is for them. But I don't want to pretend like, yes, maybe your choices have hurt her, but you're still a human being and you also deserve support and you deserve a place for yourself to work towards that bar. And you may also need some support too. It is not easy for you to endure her disappointment, her disrespect, her crying, her anger. I'm not going to ever suggest that that's easy. However, if you look at this as part of the journey to restoring a marriage for both of you down the road, if you look at this as a necessary purification in order for her to eventually trust you again, look up to you again, heal with you, and both of you will go through a process of growing. Both of you will go through a process of reevaluating the relationship, reevaluating yourselves. This is going to be a natural part of this. But as long as you're consistently, remember we talked about in the beginning, committed to yourself, grounded in what has gone on, you will have the ability to hold a space for her emotions and her responses long enough for there to eventually be some calm again. And when you get back to that place, now you can start having that conversation. What does she need for this relationship to heal? What does healing look like for her? What would have to happen for trust to be restored for her? And you don't have to decide whether you agree or you disagree with her answers. That's not important as much as it is understanding for yourself what she needs in order for her to feel once again like she can open up to you. So remember the goal. Remember where you want this to take you. It's going to be very difficult. It's going to be very difficult. And I just say that because, again, very few women are going to respond to their husbands having interaction with another woman in some capacity and be okay with that, or be not okay, but like not flustered by it. And again, keep in mind, it's because for her, this relationship with you is her all. You are the only man in her life. You're the only husband she plans on ever having. You're the person she has trusted with her heart, her mind, her body, her space. This is huge. And so helping you get to that place where you understand that she needs to go through all of her emotions, and part of your healing, but part of your purification and part of owning the consequences of some of your choices is going to be making space for that. Now, what if you see your wife completely unraveling? You tell her and she unravels, or she finds out and she unravels. And by unravels, what I mean is not that she's upset, not that she's crying, not that she's angry, but you feel like she's kind of sinking into a very dark hole. She's not engaging with the kids. She's not taking care of herself anymore. She's canceling plans. She's not getting out of bed. She's just weeping day in and day out, and it's been months. At that point, what I would ask you to do is, actually backing up, it would be very wise, but especially is make sure she has a person in her corner. Another person that she can talk to about her feelings, about her grief, about her expectations. This is a time for support. And for many women, what happens is they don't want to tell their parents because they feel, subhanAllah, like even in situations like this, I've met two kinds of women. Some women, they feel like they can turn to their parents, and they do, alhamdulillah, and their parents are a form of support for them. Others are so afraid to tell their parents because they don't want their parents to think badly about their husbands. So they don't turn to anyone. And sometimes I'm the first person that they've talked to, and I'm glad for that. And some parents aren't safe people to turn to. Some parents are going to just make things 10 times worse. So I appreciate, their judgment. But even in these circumstances, when they finally do talk to me, they're like, no one else knows. I go to the masjid and everyone thinks my husband's this and everybody thinks he's that. And our family, he's the beloved brother, he's the best uncle. And, at work, they talk about all the things that everyone sees them as. And she's quietly, dealing with this burden, and she's very alone. And sometimes even because her husband now can't handle her emotions, she doesn't talk to him anymore either. So get people in your corner, whether you're planning to talk to your spouse, whether she found out, on her own, please provide for her outside support. It's worth the investment. It's worth the sacrifice, because again, the more you guys can do in this stage to support both of you in growth and healing, the faster you can get back to a place where that bar is. The faster you can get back to a place where trust is restored, respect is restored, then mercy is restored, then eventually, inshallah, down the road, that love is restored between the two of you. And maybe, who knows, it could become the best thing that happened in your life. And 10 years down the road, you'll look back and say, that was one of the worst of times I've ever gone through, but it also became one of the best of times because my spouse and I grew so much, where we understood our lives so much better. We both healed wounds we didn't realize needed attention. But please, please, please don't try to do it all by yourself. Please don't deny her outside support. I know that if she found, like for some of you, you're here, and there's something that a wife said to me recently. She found out about, her husband's, addiction and background and how long it's been going on and how extensive it is. She's completely heartbroken, and she's trying to still take care of the kids. She's in the pandemic here in the United States, which means that everything's locked down. So she's got work at home, she's got kids at home. And in the meantime, she found out all of these things. And she said something really distinct to me, which I think is important to share with all of you. She said, I got this bomb dropped on me, basically. And he has Purify Your Gaze, and he has the forums, and he has a coach, and he has Sobriety Mastermind, and he has all these resources. She's like, and I have nothing. And I'm the one that he hurt. And that kind of is a real insight to how a woman in your life might feel, or, someone that you're hurting might feel is, you have a place of compassion and healing and support for you. Alhamdulillah, we're really glad that we have this space, right? But she's like, but what is there for me? So alhamdulillah, she came for coaching, and that is the beginning step for her. But I really want to emphasize, like, please, please, please provide for your spouse resources. And if you want to tell her for the first time, maybe you do that with a counselor present. Maybe you break the news with a counselor who is trained in this specific area to support people in this path. Maybe a counselor you've met with 3, 4, 5 times, you've got a relationship, and then maybe you bring her in and then you allow her now to start that journey. Maybe this is where you begin, is bring in that third person to help you. So please don't feel like you have to go it alone. So I hope that kind of addresses both of those. You're going to tell, or your spouse found out, but lots of patience, inshallah.
MashaAllah, MashaAllah. Barakallahu feekum, Sister Megan, for not leaving any stone unturned in terms of the very real challenges and intricacies of this. Alhamdulillah, I'm so grateful to have you. Allahumma salli ala Rasulillah. Alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah. I don't remember what the second thing was.
It was about marriage, finding out, and then wanting to tell your spouse they don't know yet. I think those were the two, right?
Okay. Alhamdulillah. We're gonna go ahead, inshallah, and call it a day. Alhamdulillah. Thank you so much. Allahumma ameen. Everybody, please. In the next time you're gonna pray, inshallah, afterwards, make dua for yourself, make dua for your family, make dua for the other members, make dua for Sister Megan and her family, inshallah. And bidnillah ta'ala, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is with all of us, inshallah, as long as we continue striving. Barakallahu feekum. I'm going to wrap this up. Sister Megan, I'll just send you an email afterwards to follow up, but inshallah, we'll let you get back to the next part of your day, inshallah. Barakallahu feekum.
All right, take care. And if anybody has a follow-up question, just tag me in the forums, because I do pop in there from time to time. So I'll try my best to get in there sometime this week if there's anything that you would like to still ask, inshallah. Okay.
Awesome.
All right, assalamu alaikum, you guys.
Alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. And I did type this out in the chat box. I'm just going to go ahead and paste it. For anybody who is in the situation where you are in a marriage or approaching a marriage and are considering these difficult questions, it can be helpful to have a story and somebody who's gone through it, who shared their stories. I'm not sure how many of you are aware that we have spotlight interviews in our resources of members who have gone through all kinds of stuff. You name it, we have somebody who has gone through it and has shared their story. So I'm going to share 2 with you in the chat box there. Under library, bonus resources, spotlight interviews, we have Yusuf and Shaquille, both of whom have shared for the community to hear their story of when they, in one case, disclosed, and in another case, were found out, what happened, and how things ultimately were pieced back together for them. So check those out, inshallah, if you're looking for some guidance and inspiration. Barakallahu feekum. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.